Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to NCI Live. My name is David Groth. I'm a technical sales specialist, network centered, and today we're going to be talking about the modern workplace, what that means, what it looks like, and how to help businesses get there. And joining me today is Abby Hanson. She is the U.S. Modern Workplace Sales Practice Leader, so needless to say, she has some good insights on the topic. Welcome, Abby. Hey,
Hi, David. Thanks for
hey,
having me.
good to see you again. I just wanted to make note to everybody that's tuning in. If you're tuning in on YouTube, LinkedIn, chat us your questions. We'll be able to get them, and then we can try to answer them live on the air, uh, or after when we have a little bit of time for some Q&A, and we'll do our best to answer them. So, on that note, Abby, thanks again for joining us. And why don't we talk about a little bit about modern workplace? So, since we hear a lot about modern workplace, especially since 2020, why don't you give us a little bit of intro? What do you think that means? What does it mean to you? What does it mean to everybody?
Well, it's kind of been a crazy little over 2 years, right? With the way the world has changed so drastically, and we didn't realize that we were going to be in this modern work slash hybrid way of life so quickly. But the pandemic really pushed us in that manner, and so we're seeing that modern work really is digital collaboration. Being able to work anytime, any place, securely, anywhere in the world to be able to accomplish our jobs, and so it's actually really exciting. Even though the pandemic was a kind of a bad thing that happened, it really, accelerated growth in technology, which is a
Right,
lot of fun
right,
to
and it
see.
changed really fundamentally how people work, and not just their jobs, but on a day-to-day basis, the types of things they do, right? And the products that they use to do their work. Kind of brings us into. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
No, I
yep,
was.
go ahead. Uh,
This is going to be a thing. We do that a lot. Uh, Brings us into the topic really when we talk about modern workplace. Also, it's become a buzzword, but also it segues really nicely into the topic of modern workplace as it talks about Microsoft. Like Microsoft has this whole, uh, should we say, product suite as well as a a direction that they're going when it comes to modern workplace and some of the product lines and other things that they deal with the modern workplace. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Microsoft has a whole suite of services, right, from the end user side of the house. And when they talk about modern work, they're really thinking about how do we collaborate together? How do we become more creative together? And how do we become secure at the same time? And Microsoft has a suite of products called Microsoft 365 or Office 365 that allows us to be able to do that. And we really focus on, end users, 300 users and below from a Microsoft 365 Business Premium point. And above that, we have M365 suites that include security above that as well. So, and we really focus on Microsoft Teams, and Microsoft Teams is a big part of that
Yeah,
collaboration portion of it
absolutely.
as well.
Teams is probably my favorite. Of all the different products they have, Teams is probably my favorite. And I know you happen to have a soft spot for it as well. What is your favorite feature of Teams? Do you have one? Like, is it there's so many, I
Oh
know.
my God. I just It is, I know, and I always laugh because, Microsoft Teams, and when I talk to anyone, I'm always like, "Microsoft Teams is so sexy," right? It is really the way that we do business. It is the platform on how we can run a company from anywhere. And so when we think about it, I love being able to chat, collaborate. I love picking up my cell phone on Teams, never having to give out my cell phone number ever again, and being
Yeah.
able to make a phone call. When I interviewed for this job 2.5 years ago, I was sitting in Africa having a Microsoft Teams call, just really looking and being able to collaborate from that perspective. So, plus, I love all the different apps that can
Mhm.
come into play, right? There's automation to run your company, streamline business processes, and
Oh,
everything across the
absolutely.
board.
Do you have a cool team story, like one of the coolest things you've ever done with teams? Like, to give you an example, I'm going to have you give you one. Just here internally, uh, we have a program where we would um, give attaboys to internal people. And it used to be a slow process, and it was gathered manually and using Excel. A lot of people use Excel for things to just gather things manually. We turned it into a Teams thing that would post things live to a chat, to so forth, and so people
Yeah.
could see feedback immediately, and it was meaningful. So it really, and it really, the feedback went from, you know, one a week, two a week, to dozens a week, and the company was very happy. So
Yeah.
you have anything like that? Any cool stories that,
Oh my gosh, well, I have a couple of them. So first of all, I love to give kudos to my team members, and you can actually send a
oh yeah,
Starbucks gift card
yeah,
direct from chat. So if you want to like, surprise somebody and you know they need a little bit of caffeine, I'll do that once in a while. You just need to make sure you have a Starbucks account to be able to connect that. But a couple of really cool stories from a customer's perspective is we had a CNC store, convenience store, where the truck drivers would bring the product to the CNC stores, and they used to, you know, go in with their paper and they would check off every single
mm,
box that they had there, and billing processing took 45 days. They would, you know, get that checked off, go to the front desk, reconfirm that everything went there. And we actually helped build a process where they go in and they scan the boxes on their phone, which connects to Teams. The billing actually creates on the fly. They go up, have the manager check off and digitally sign
yep,
and hit send. And billing actually happens in 15 days. And so we were able to increase efficiency within the organization. And I love it because I always think about
mm,
Walt Disney, right? If you can dream it,
yeah,
you can really do it within
yep,
Microsoft Teams. Another cool thing too, you know, there's a new SKU,
mm,
Microsoft Teams Essentials is
yep,
awesome, right? And we're working with a couple of local or actual national baseball minor league teams. And what they're doing is they're using Teams Essentials for their seasonal workers. So if you have custodial, let's say in section 32, row A, there's a spill, you know, that person can get a message on their phone through Teams Essentials that there's a spill and somebody can get down there versus going all the way up, getting the mop. Somebody can actually bring it down to them, and they're actually creating a safer environment for their clients at a baseball field. And so, and they're using it for entertainment to stay more connected. And so it's really cool how Microsoft is being innovative to be able to drive that first
right.
line
And I have to say, one
experience.
of the things that I run into here at NCI is when I first talk to people about Teams, or people contact us about it, they they say, "Well, I've got this program, I've got Teams, and hey, we're using it for chat." And they go, "It's a chat program." No, no, it's so much more. And it really has changed how we work because it's collaboration. But you just mentioned several practical applications of Teams and how it's used on a daily basis for things. So I want to really keep incorporating a few other pieces. One of my little passion projects, which is Power Apps. A lot of people haven't
Yeah.
really talked about Power Apps and how it works with, like, say, Teams, and how it can kind of bring all that together into a modern workplace. So do you have anything you'd like to talk about
Mhm.
there? Any?
You always Yeah, they're doing so many cool things. We just went through a demo yesterday on really how you can do Power
Yeah,
Apps with Dynamics, Microsoft Dynamics too, to connect billing processes and opportunities if you're in a sales organization, and how things just really talk to each other. And you know, it comes back down to really just building out the platform from
exactly.
that
And that
perspective.
just is a great example of how it's a platform, not just chat, right? Not just being able to make video calls and make
Absolutely.
chat. So the big topic that people, I'm sure, are
Yeah.
asking is, well, okay, this is great and all, but what about security? I'm going to put all my stuff there and I'm going to talk to people. What about security? What about, how does this apply? How do I keep things secure in a modern workplace where I'm all remote, or I have part of my staff remote? How do I do it?
Yeah, and you know, Teams is sexy, but security is super critical, right? It's on the back end of the house and the front end of the house when we come to think about it. And Microsoft is investing $20 billion in its security platform in the next 5 years, really to make sure that everything is safe, secure, and encrypted. And you know, when you're in the platform across the board, you're able to, you know, recognize where threats come. You can do things for for phishing and actually test your
Mhm.
employees from that
Yep.
perspective as well, right? Like, I think I get one every week. Hey, Abby, you're going to get free lunch, And I'm like, oh, this is exciting. But then I go to look at it, and I'm like, oh,
Yep.
they're trying to get me, right? And so from that perspective, you can test your employees to become more secure aware, which I think is
Yep.
super critical, right? Especially from an organizational standpoint. And then when you think about like individual teams perspective, being secure when it comes to our customer data is super important. And so you can actually make sure that people can't send credit card numbers through chat or
Mhm.
through email. You can't send social security
Mhm.
numbers. You can block those phases. Um, if you're an education customer, I think the really cool thing is you words of bullying and
Yeah.
block them. So you're actually creating this
That's
empowering
huge right now.
environment
Yeah.
for our
Yep.
students. And so
Yeah.
it's big, right? And I mean, you look at mental health, and that just plays right into like their overall ecosystem of what they're trying to
Absolutely. Absolutely.
accomplish.
And that's one of the things that people don't ever talk about is the teams, the data governance and the piece about knowing compliance also. Like you've got the
Mhm.
other half of it, the twin of compliance within internally saying, okay, not only am I knowing what's happening with those communications, but the the compliance to certain government standards, right? Like is all of our data
Yeah,
according to this, right? So got that piece too.
absolutely. And you nailed it right there with data governance, right? There's over 90 regulatory compliances that are covered by Microsoft, HIPAA, FERPA, you name it, it is covered because we need to make sure we're protecting ourselves from that perspective.
Absolutely, absolutely. Have you run into any challenges, specific challenges in the, uh, I'm just going to say in a general sense in the modern workplace arena? And I know you probably could tell me a million stories, so I don't want to try to nail you down to too many. But is there any examples that you can give me about challenges that you've run into with companies adopting a modern workplace philosophy?
It's really like there's 5 different generations that work in the
Mhm.
workforce right now. And so when we actually sit down and we think about that, what happens there? Different generations are apt to
Right.
change, right? And so it really comes down to adoption and change management. So how do we get our employees who are used to doing one thing one way for 40 years to change to come to the technology way of
Hmm.
things, right? And so those challenges come down to creating a great adoption change management program along with internal champions within your organization. And I know you guys do a great job of that at Network Center, identifying champions to help that change happen from that
Mhm.
perspective. So, and I think that's the greatest thing is adopting new technology when you're not used to it, can be a struggle from that
Certainly,
perspective.
certainly. Um, so another one of my just I'm gonna talk about one of your points you mentioned earlier about teams calling. Again, with
Mhm.
respect to you have the point-to-point collaboration. Everybody's used a Teams call at one point or another, right? At least in the business world, we have them all the time. As a matter of fact, just as an FYI, for those of you not paying attention, we're actually on a Teams call right now. I don't think we actually pointed that out. We're actually on a Teams call. Um, but specifically, when it comes to making phone calls using Teams calling, how do you find people adopting that? Like, do you find that that's being received?
Oh my gosh, 97 of the top Fortune 100 companies are using Microsoft Teams calling. And, if you can look at those larger companies that are actually adopting it, you know that it's spreading like wildfire. And, during the pandemic, the saddest thing for me was to hear that companies were transferring their phone numbers to cell phone numbers because they didn't have any other
Hmm.
way to do business. So their costs actually went up, right? Because they had to pay cell phone stipends. And so customers are really adapting quickly to driving the telephony portion within their organization. And it's
Yeah,
inexpensive. Like it's $15, right, per user per month. Include your calling plan plus Microsoft Teams audio conferencing, that phone number that we're using, on Teams meetings every single day. It's free. So why not be connected to the people that, are going to help you run your company and your customers to talk at the
yeah.
same
And
time?
time was before I think the pandemic and before really the modern workplace got adapted, you couldn't say, "Hey, I want you to make all your calls on a headset." Right, in the modern in
Yeah.
a work environment, in a knowledge worker setting, or somebody sitting in front of a computer, they would want their phone. And don't get me wrong, I think there's people that still want their phone, but it's amazing to me
Yeah.
how many people are now comfortable with this kind of a setup with a headset and that, to the point where when I'm going to use ourselves as an example, when people here contact us, they say, "No, I don't need phones. Just we've got headsets. We're good." And
Yeah. And the 10 key on your keyboard, I use sometimes when I travel, I use my Beats or my AirPods. Right now, I'm speaking through a Jabra Puck. I can speak through my computer or I can go through my
mhm,
Link too, right? I have like 12 different devices on my computer that I'm able to use to connect. And, I'll be on a cell phone or a call and I'll have to, like, my child this morning was sick. I got a call. I transferred the call directly to my cell phone and I went to my Bluetooth. The customer
yep,
didn't even know I switched. And then I got back to my computer and I was there again after I picked him up from school. So that ease of use is just
yep.
amazing to me.
I know,
Sorry, I
and
get a little
that's the
excited.
problem. You and I can, you and I presented at a conference a while back, and we could talk for probably a couple of
Yeah.
hours on the different, just on Teams alone, right?
Good.
Um, oh yeah,
And the voice. I mean, it's life changing.
yeah. Now,
Absolutely.
those of you that know I'm a little bit of a hardware geek. What do you have? You've seen some of the Teams room stuff. Like when we talk about conference
Yeah.
rooms now with now with the hybrid environment and modern work, people have a different idea of a meeting. Time was you'd go into a conference room, right? You'd sit down, everybody in the boardroom, and you'd have the starfish phone or whatever, where the tri phone, whatever, and you dial into a conference
Yeah.
bridge and you'd have your phone call, and that would be it, right? Now you've got video, you've got all of these things and collaboration. What do you feel is the new modern idea of that? What with respect to, let's put a slant on it with teams and other things. What do you feel that's like?
Yeah, I think hybrid, right? It's all about, those that can be in the office are because everybody works differently. And that's something we have to think about as well. There's someone at my door. Can you hear that? That's hybrid work right there. Is you being able to get UPS and
and,
Amazon
and
while
it's
you're sitting
normal
at
too,
home and
right?
nobody
It's
steals your
normal.
package,
Yep.
right? Yeah. Well, I've been sitting here, Amazon and UPS came up, so it's a
Yep.
good thing. Yeah. But I love like the hybrid work scenario. And we have an offering through Ingram through you where you can actually try
Yep.
a Teams meeting room system free for 60 days. And so being able to use like the different systems that are there, the new is it ePause Puck where actually
Oh yeah.
translates for
Yeah,
you
that's
is
cool.
really cool. My with the pandemic, they actually sent me a Surface Hub so that I can run meetings directly
Mhm.
from my home office, and it has whiteboard capabilities so that I'm actually able to real-time collaborate with my team members, and so it's just really cool the way that we're able to
Yeah,
collaborate from that
I'm lucky. I
perspective.
get to play with all the new hardware and the new toys, especially in that arena, and being able to work with
Yeah.
some of those tools, but actually not just play with the features, but actually able to see the benefits of people using them. We had one company that put in 5 different systems, and they're located all across the country. And now they can have company-wide meetings instead of bringing people in. They would just have company-wide meetings in one location. So, and not just face-to-face
Yeah.
calling, but also sharing documents and whiteboarding and all the things you just mentioned. So, I think that's I get
Yeah.
passionate about it too. I think it's wonderful.
It's awesome, and that document
Yep.
sharing is amazing, right? And we go back to Microsoft Teams and you don't have to send documents that are humongous anymore via email. You just share them in Teams. Everybody can open them at the same time, work on them at the same time. And if you think about it, and it's a proven statistic, right? You can get back in an hour and a half per day per person if you're fully
Mhm.
deployed on Teams and you've adopted it, right? They understand how to use it. Now, if you look at that in a 100-seat company, we're just going to go down to an hour, not the hour and a
Hmm.
half, but you're going to get where I'm going. That's 100 hours per day, 500
Right.
hours per week. Now, doing the math on that, what revenue generating activities could you actually bring into your ecosystem to bring your company's revenue up? And so that's how we think differently about how we collaborate and how we become
Absolutely.
creative together.
Absolutely. Um, one other question, kind of related to this, I wanted to add, because one question I get a lot is how does, in the idea of the Microsoft sphere of modern workplace, how does now Teams fits in there, and that's a fairly obvious one. I mean, that's the glaring example. What other products, if we were to say, give me a product that fits within modern workplace, what else do you think would fit into that? Would you classify Office as part of like the Office suite, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, all those? Would you classify those?
Oh, absolutely. Those are products within the platform, and those are things that we use every day,
Hmm.
email in the cloud, the hybrid environment from that perspective. Some new cool products that are
Oh
coming
yeah.
out. Microsoft
Hmm.
Viva is awesome. So you're able to set up a remote learning environment so that your employees can learn. You'll have the library that sits in one location, plus the insights tab. Most people know I book meetings 3 weeks in advance. It's very hard to
I
get on
do.
my calendar. And so with that, it's also very hard for me to get a lunch break or time to do my admin work. So I'll do everything during the day. And then at night, I'm probably working 2 or 3 hours, right? Just because of the nature of my role. But once insights came in, now I have focus time. It automatically blocks my calendar every day for 1 to 2 hours, depending on the need, puts me in do not disturb from that perspective. And I'm getting my work done so I can have a better work life balance. And so that's
Absolutely.
important
Absolutely.
too.
Um, you talked about Microsoft Viva. I That one is going to be really cool for people. I've actually been using it for a little while, and my schedule is also very hectic. And those also people of outside who've got try to get time on my calendar, same deal. I've had to be jealous of my time, and Viva
Yeah.
actually reminds me, say, hey, take time your work. Make sure you're not just taking meetings and phone calls all the time. Make sure you have time blocked aside. I love it. It's awesome.
Yeah, and there's some cool apps too. I think I just turned it off the other day, but it actually reminds
Yes,
you to
yes, I've
breathe.
seen that one.
It's
I've
kind of
seen
like
that one. How
Apple Watch.
about
Yeah, it's like a breakthrough, I think it's called. And it's kind of like, okay, Abby, you have 5 minutes, get up, walk around, you work from home, go grab some fresh air, even though it's cold in Fargo most of the time. But just, it reminds you to do that part of it too. So it's neat though,
yeah,
those
like
integrations within
Polly
there.
is one I like to play with a lot, like asking the little surveys and stuff. And there was one that was like a GIF of the day. I saw one that was just you threw it in. Yeah, I can't remember where I saw that. Um, but the other one is bookings, like having people from outside. Salespeople use that a lot, like book time on my calendar, kind of a thing. Um,
Yeah, and approvals too.
oh yeah,
Approvals is nice, and then you can also, there's the app for scheduling. So you can actually get rid of your scheduling internally as a company, and your employees can clock in and clock out, and they're able to exchange shifts and things like that as well. And so it really shows some of those cost savings abilities as well within the
absolutely,
platform.
absolutely. No, I can't say enough good things about Teams as a platform. Doing a couple of different rollouts within different companies has given me a lot of enjoyment to see companies change over time. And some of them change
Mhm.
very, very rapidly. Some of them just implement a few features, but you can see that they've actually and it sounds trite to say it, but they've increased productivity, right? But you actually see it in their
Yeah.
daily use. They go from using email to using chat and posts. And oh man, when you get people that are the phrase that gets adopted is, "Hey, just Teams me." I saw that being used in different companies, and when they did that, it was uh yeah, it was awesome. So just wanted this time has flown by. I'm literally going to throw out to anyone that's watching us live. I'm going to throw out. We have some time for questions. We've only got a few minutes left here, but I'm going to throw it out to questions for anybody that has them. And I'll just wait a couple minutes here, but we can keep talking. Of course, we've got a million things to say. I know. So Abby and I've worked together on many projects, so there's a lot of stuff we've dealt
Yeah.
together, especially in this particular arena, Microsoft in general, but all the related stuff.
I think some of the things we want to talk about too, if there's no questions coming in, is our world right now is in a tough place. And, we have the war going on with Russia and Ukraine. And, in the month of March alone, cyber attacks from China to the US rose by 114%. And, they just put out some statistics yesterday on cyber warfare from Russia as well. And so, not only do we have physical war going on, but there's cyber warfare. And so as businesses, we need to be very concerned about our security posture. If you don't have an infrastructure that includes, a security platform, you don't have the ability to, block threats. This is a serious conversation that you need to have within your company because, on average, smaller customers, we call them SMBs under 300 seats, they can lose up to $137,000 a day, right? And so let's have that conversation with you about how we do safe, secure, and encrypted. And don't wait until it happens to you. Be proactive from that standpoint.
Certainly. We did get one question. I'm just going to throw it out here. Teams governance, is that an HR IT process within the MSP? We talked a little bit about the team's government, and is it an HR IT process? I'll throw you you give me your answer, and then I have a comment or two about it. You want me to go first? Oh goodness.
Go ahead.
Well, you're the guest. You're the guest. You go first.
Yeah. Oh, Dave. Well, I think it's a whole company process, right? And I think when you sit down at the table, especially with your MSP, you need to figure that out together. Like, there could be different processes depending upon department, but I think you should be standardized across the org. And I see a lot of times where a company will standardize on a certain SKU. No, you never have to standardize, right? But you can add on layers of security, so that's a consistent factor within your organization.
I think that the actual governance of those things is covered by, you're right, by multiple locations, but it has to be more policy driven. Right, and then it's executed oftentimes by a working group, if you will, that does contain members of the IT group, as well as can be, depending on the nature of the policy. Right, it could be an HR policy, it could be an administrative policy, and those groups will each have input into the governance. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I agree. Like if you work in a financial institution, for example, and when your tellers leave, they may have Teams on their phone. You might want a security policy that the minute they walk out the door and they're no longer on the network, they're shut off, right? Because you don't want data being brought out of the organization if they're not at a certain level. And so you can actually set that down to persona.
I do have one more question, and then we're going to have to wrap it up here. What would you say has been the most difficult adjustment to the modern workplace?
I just think it's cultural, right? It comes down to training, development, and making sure that you have champions within the organization. From that perspective, it's learning new technology. But if you take it slow and you know which steps to follow, you can make it a very easy process.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what we hear. It's not technological. It is completely mindset and social. Yep.
Yeah.
So, absolutely. Well, Abby, it has been too short, as always. Thank you so much for showing up. Basically, I wanted to give you a shout out, and then also for everyone, if you want to come and visit us, come see our social media at LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, of course. But again, as always, Abby, you have been great. Thank you so much. And we've barely scratched the surface, so everyone, please visit our website at netcenter.net or email us at info@netcenter.net. Look forward to seeing you all in the future. Thanks again, Abby. You bet.
Thanks so much, you guys. Have a great day.